Thank you very much for having me here. I am myself have been a banker and advisor to on the financial side of many families, so I am familiar with this group, I guess, what you're going through every day. And just as I sat down this afternoon for this session, I'm just coming back from a next generation member of one of my clients' family, which is struggling to understand the financial reports she receives from her family office because the report is 40 pages long and has a lot of graphs and tables and benchmarks and stuff like that. But she actually just wants to know how much money is there and what's the performance for this year. So again, the border between financial management and what is the client's need and what's the family's need is always been an issue. And I think that that's what I would like to address today a little bit, is that yes, we know how to manage money, but do we know how to manage money from families? So let's, with further ado, start with the presentation. Let me move the slide once and see if that works. You see slides changing? Yes, I guess, otherwise you would have.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so I would like to talk about performance and about how a family office succeeds in helping the family. Before we do that, for about me, what was already said, but just quickly, I started in '85. I was a private banker at Bank Julius Baer in Zurich. Then at Gutzwiller, I worked at JP Morgan in New York. In Zurich, I was with Republic. Then moved to Israel, started a private banking for Union Bank of Israel, the international private banking. But since 2001, I'm on my own. I've been managing money for families as a multi-family office. I'm also the single family office of my own family. We're managing a Swiss real estate business, which we inherited from our parents, as well as advising many, many families on all the issues surrounding their wealth. And I would like to start here. So that's me, a little bit without Zoom. Let me just quickly get my screen up. Okay, so I'm, as I said, sit in Zurich and Tel Aviv. Here have it. Let's start. I was already with your group in January of 2021, I think it was, midst of Corona, and was able to give a speech. I'm in India every few months, and I like very much to come there. I wrote a book. It's called Woes of the Rich, and it's available on Amazon. So let's start. My family, myself, I'm fourth generation of a family business, which my great-grandfather started in the 1890s. It was in textile. We were producing in Switzerland, went through all what the 20th centuries had to offer. First World War, Second World War. My great-grandfather died in 1940. My grandfather took over. Then in the 67, when my grandfather died, my father was already very involved in the business and continued the business until in the 70s, when the oil crisis came and manufacturing in Switzerland became not possible anymore due to all the money the all expenses you have in Switzerland, and also, of course, the competition which came from Asia, from Hong Kong, and perhaps also India. So my father wanted to see reinvested and redone the business in '69, did a huge investment in building a new factory building, investing in staff and machinery and all that. But already in 1972, he saw that something is going bad. He went to Harvard, to the AMP, studied how a business is managed in the American way, in a modern management theory, and in 1974 decided to liquidate the business after really a long period of having a family business. Now the question, of course, is, so what? So that's the end of the family business? That's the end of the family? No. We went through a hard time. My father needed some time to unwind. Then he found a new activity. He became a CEO of a big American trading company and started his new career. Today, we are 16 family members, actually 21 when you count the spouses and boyfriends and girlfriends. And we enjoy the fruits of the labor of 4 generations before us. or 3 generations before us, and we are fourth generation, me and my siblings. And today have a new business, which is a real estate management company. We own and operate real estate in Switzerland, and that's what I today manage. So yes, you have to reinvent, and yes, things change, but you still can be a family business. Now let's see, how do you generate alpha for generations? Of course, we all know assets. If I tell you name a few assets, if that would be interactive, you would tell me, of course, financial assets, stocks, bonds, real estate, hedge funds, alternatives, what have your core business. That's all assets you know. And these assets, we all know that if you invest long enough, you will have, if you invest only in stocks, you will make a lot of money. If you invest in bonds, you sleep well and you make some money. But in general, if you have a mixed portfolio, about 2/3 of the time, if not 3/4 of the time, you have positive results, whereas only about a quarter of the time of the years you have negative results. So buy and hold and being invested is making you money. And to quote Albert Einstein, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. So if you're invested correctly, money grows. So if money grows and you get compound interest, why is it that some families are having an issue and actually the family falls apart or the family business falls apart if you're just now proven that money is making money? So let's first discuss what is wealth. Wealth is, of course, the word wealth comes from mid 13th century English, which meant happiness, well-being. And it was not only about money, it was about how to feel well and how to be well. Money, of course, helps. So let's talk about wealth. When we think about wealth, as we said before, it's investments, it's your business, it's stuff which you can count, it's money. Financial wealth, which I call the quantitative assets, which are the operating business and investments, which are your liquid assets. It can be your real estate investments, your socially responsible investments in your town, in your society where you live. You invest as a leader in the community. And it's, of course, also the tangible investments, which is your home, your car, if you're very rich, your plane, your yacht. Can be your collectibles, your heirlooms, art on the wall, this stuff. That's the quantitative. You can measure it, you can count it, you can fight over it. This is something which every one of us has and can manage easily. But that's not all. What is missing? Of course, what is missing is the qualitative asset. You have quantitative, which is now talked about. Let's see what is qualitative. So the qualitative assets is the human capital. A family has more than just dollars and cents, businesses and factories. They have family members. Some of them are working in the family business. Some of them are leading the family business, but some of them are supporting role, either by being there and listening, either by giving some input from the outside, being a critical voice sometimes, but they are there. So there's human capital in the family. You have much people to rely on. And we saw it when we had the COVID-19, that sometimes we had to go back to the family and use the family to be for our resilience of our business and fall back on people which were not actually in the forefront. Legacy capital, of course, we have traditions. We have the family brand. We have something just we do, and we come from this region and we do everything this way. So we have values, we have core purposes, which can be very important for the pride and the story around the business. Even so, if I'm not involved in the family business, but I know that my father or my brother or my uncle is running a very successful business, which in the town is known as being the big successful business, you also get something out of it, and it's a capital which you should be looking at. Family relationship capital. How do you talk to the family? How the ability to be a strong family also comes, of course, that you learn how to overcome difficult issues in the family, which is also an important part of your family and an asset. Can be an asset. Structural asset, of course, is having a structure. That's the most important. To have a governance structure, policies, practices, and to be effective in the family, and also be fair. If it says in the structural in the governance that family members only can be active managers in the business if they have a certain skill set or a certain degree, then that does mean it's the rule for everyone, and not only it has to be applied to everyone, and the governance has to be followed, and that's the structure. Social capital, as I said, you live in a town, you live in a village, you have your factory, you're the biggest employer in the region. You have, this is a capital for you, this is an asset, this is goodwill. You have to also use it, manage it, and to your benefit. So do we understand that if you have quantitative assets and qualitative assets, then you have actually a real wealth portfolio, and that's what you should be managing as a family office. You should not only look at the stocks and bonds in the assets. You should also be looking at the qualitative assets. So that we just discussed. I'll do it a bit faster. So here you are. Quantitative goes hand in hand with qualitative, and we have to understand that, and we have to invest time. Wealth transfer, another one of the big issues. It's not that it's a transfer, it's actually a transition. It's not a process. It's not that on Friday night you decide it's enough, I'm sick of managing the business. Monday morning the keys go over to my son and he will run the business from now on. That doesn't work. It's a process, and it's a long process, and it has to be prepared well. So how do you do work-based transition? Some of you know that famous advertisement of Patek Philippe, the Swiss watch, where it says you merely you never actually own a Patek Philippe, you just merely look after it for the next generation. So that's exactly the way you should be managing a family business. You should be always thinking about the next generation or generations, how they will be able to run that business and to manage it. So how does that transaction work, and does it actually work? So the number one problem in wealth transition is that 35% of the cases, the communication is the problem. There's a communication breakdown. We don't know how to talk to the next generation. We don't know how to talk to our siblings. We don't know how to get a point through. We have cultural differences. We have generational differences. We see the world different. Communication is one of the biggest breakers of family businesses. And number two, of course, is badly preparing the next generation for receiving what they are receiving. Either they're not well prepared to receive the business or the money, and become spendthrifts or fight over money. That's 30% of the cases. And of course, as I said before, governance, if you don't have any structure, if there's no clear rules how the business is managed, how family members approach the business and are part of the business, if there's no real governance, then you have a rift in the family, then you have problems for the transition. That makes the problem for the transition. And most for me important, even though here it says it's 10%, but it's something which is actually all of it together, is your family values. And if the family values are your values, if the founder or the older generation thinks that my values are the values which are for the whole family, you will actually lose the family, and it will be failing. So the family becomes my values, and then it fails. Play of words. So here we have it summarized. If you look at the pie chart, 35% plus 30, so 65% is actually not preparing, not communicating correctly. This is why things fail, not because of performance. As we saw, if you manage the money properly, you actually make money. In a normal family business, the first generation, the one-man show or one-woman show, he's the owner, he's the business, he's the family, he's everything. All resources are for the goal. It's the family is seen as resources to be used, but they're not actually partners. The children remain the children. So next generation, even if you're 50 or 60, you're still the children. The patriarch or matriarch come from very poor background, or started very on the bottom, or immigrated from one town to the next. and started a business. So they are also immigrants to wealth. We don't understand the children. They don't understand the grandchildren. They walked 5 kilometers to get to school, whereas the grandchildren are being chauffeured to school. So the success is actually difficult for them to cope. Uh, but because he or she is the owner and the business and the family, they just run it alone. It's a one-man show. It's a dictatorship, and everything goes well. But then comes the next generation moves in. So they already are born into the business. They have the privilege that the parents send them off to education and they get a good degree. They work in the business or not, but it's the parents to decide. It's very much centered with the parent. And of course, the ownership is not clear at all. And it's very difficult to bring in new ideas, but still, it's a sibling partnership at the end. If the parents, after a long life, leave this world, it's a sibling partnership. The parents are still really present in the decisions, in the way the business is run. But soon it's becoming complex. And when you go to the third generation, it's becoming very complex because you have owners which are not in the business. You have a family who are not owners. You have people in the business who are neither family nor owners, and you have those which are all three together. And now it's getting complicated. You have marriages, divorces, children of very different ages. The cousins are in different ages. So here you start, everything is circling and turning around, and it's becoming a huge mess, and infighting goes on. And it's urgently that you need that centerpiece, that wheel that is turning all of it together, which we call family governance. So here we are. And then summarized again, you have the founder, which is single controller. You have sibling relationship, which it sometimes still works, but you already have to get some structure. But once you're at the cousins, once you're at the third generation, you just have to have the deal with the complexity and have a governance in place. So here we are. What is a family office? The family office is not managing the family business. The family office is managing the business of the family. This is very important not to overstep this line, because you're not the CEO of the family business. You are the CEO of the family. Therefore, you have to see all family members and not only ones which are in the business. How do you do a family governance? A one-man show. He lives in a loft. There's no boundaries, no walls. Everything is open. The sleeping room and the dining room and the living room and the kitchen, everything very New York style. Everything is open. It's one show. One moment he runs the business from the bedroom. The next time he sits in the living room. The decisions are taken ad hoc. There's no structure. There's no messages, no board meetings, steering committees. Everything is done by a one-man show and in instinct, which is actually the secret why it succeeded, but it just doesn't work anymore for the next generation. In the next generation, you need to start to have, in a multi-generational business, you need to have very clear walls, very clear definitions, very clear governance. What's discussed in the business room, what's discussed in the boardroom, what's discussed when the owners are together, and what's discussed in the family. Because in the business room, you have your employees, you have your external, the CEO or the CIO or the COO, which is not family member, and you don't want to fight in front of your employees because they will think that the business is falling apart, the family has a fight, and will not want to stay there. You don't want to see the bank for a new loan of your next factory building you want to build, and have a dispute in front of the banker when he thinks, wow, this family is going in a bad direction, we are not financing their business. So in the business room, we talk business. In the boardroom, we evaluate if the business is going well, if the managers are in the right place, if we have to hire or fire people, if we have to enlarge some business, shut down a line, stuff like that. Board decisions. In the ownership room, there we sit and discuss, do we buy the business, sell the business? Do we buy someone out? Do we get partners or we get partners out? And in the family room, we talk about the Diwali weekend, which we are planning. We are talking about the family vacations. We're talking perhaps about dividends, which the owners have decided, or the board has decided, and the needs of the family are looked in the family room. But the family room is for the family. And also, if you're not a shareholder, or also if you're not in the business, you have to be a part of that room and you have to be heard in that room. So you need a structure. It's just symbolic, the rooms, obviously. You need a structure, you need walls, you need boundaries. There is a disadvantage of having a governance, of course, because you think that everything is getting complicated, everything is institutionalized. Wow, we need meetings and we need to discuss every bullshit, sorry the word. When I run the business alone, I just take decisions. Now I need to institutionalize everything. It needs to be transparent. I have to explain to everyone what I'm doing. Succession has to be discussed. But you have, of course, a resource, which is the next generation and the family members, which are there at your disposal, where before you had to just you just decided it all. And of course, the accountability and the dispersion of power. So there is advantages which are helping the business to come to next generations, but from the point of view of the owner, of course, that's a very difficult thing. Sorry. I think that very interestingly also, in many cases, the family which was founded, the business which was founded by one owner and then becomes a multi-generational family business, the first generation knows the factory ground. He knows how to do every transaction in the business, from production to sales to logistics, because he owns the business. He's an operator. He run it forever. But the next generations most probably are sitting up in the C rooms. They're sitting in the chair in the chief operating office, or in the chief marketing or chief whatever. They're sitting up there in the offices and barely ever go down to the factory and barely ever see the members of the factory. So this is, of course, a different way of running a business. So this is also a part of the transition, that the next generation or the grandchildren are less connected to the business in the sense how the founder was connected. The founder had one little factory or one little shop which became a factory, whereas in the second or third generation you have factories all over the country or even abroad, and you can't be everywhere every time. So you have to run this as an owner and not as an operator. And then, of course, we all may give the family the hope that one day all of this will be yours, but we are not yet ready to do that. So it's to think about King Charles, who had to wait until 70 something until he received the business. There is decisions to be taken when you do transitions. For example, what's more important, the family or the business? Also, if I own it, I can also destroy it or spend it or sell it. But if I'm the steward for the next generations, if I want to keep the business going for generations, I have to manage the business and manage the funds as a steward for the next generation. And the transitionship of leadership to new leaders is very difficult, whereas also you have to have the focus of a 50, 100 year if you want to run the business for that long. And of course, estate planning. A lot of people don't want to talk about death. A lot of people think that they will live forever, but that's not true. Unfortunately, sometimes earlier than expected, and sometimes we get to very old age, but we have to plan ahead. Just today, I got a WhatsApp from my insurance, for my private health insurance, that my premium is going up because I'm getting older. So I had my first message of my pension fund, that my health insurance, that it's time to think that I'm getting into my pension age. I'm 56, but still, that I'm getting to that age that I should look at my children and think about how they will inherit and how they will run the business, because I'm getting older. And the earlier, the better. So what is a good owner? A good owner is someone who thinks long term. A good owner is someone who prepares the next generation to be shareholders. A good owner is someone who shares information and doesn't always hide everything from everyone and just say, everything is going well, children, one day you will have the business, it's wonderful. And so, no, share the information. Teach them what is happening in the business, how it's happening, why it's happening. This will help them to become good shareholders and to be good owners. So, and then of course you also have to prepare how do you work with people which are not family. But the four basic questions, which always surprisingly people don't know in families, is who owns what? How is it organized? It's their holding structure. It's not who, everything is in the name of the father. Is the mother involved? Who owns what? And who knows what? If the favorite son who is in the business knows much more than his sister who is not in the business, or his other brother who is not in the business, what does it do to the family? What does it do when they have to be owners afterwards together? Why shouldn't the governance deal with it? Because if not, you have there's an asymmetry in information that creates mistrust and that creates jealousy. Can they work together? Children grew up in the same house and already it's difficult. But imagine cousins. Your cousin has grown up with his parents and you have grown up with your parents. It might be a complete different household, complete different values, even so that you are inheriting a family business which was founded by your grandfather. And then there are certain things which are just not allowed to touch. There is something which is like holy, and we don't change the factory building. We don't do that. It's carved in stone. So you have to know what is the no-nos. What do we don't do? Now, generating alpha for generations. What do you need? Exactly. If you want to get rich in the first generation, you're focusing on creating wealth. But from the second generation forward, you have to emphasize the conditions to thrive in wealth. You have to use wealth in the proper way that you can stay rich. It's preservation of capital. It's investing in the business. It's making an environment where money can be a tool to help to bring the business and the family forward. And it's a complete different skill set. As we said, you need to look at the quantitative and at the qualitative assets. Sorry, that's the wrong slide. Here we are. Now, there are people out there, a friend of ours called Dennis Jaffe. I think Aditya also knows him well. Dennis Jaffe made a very interesting research. He interviewed many families and wanted to see families which are already in 100-year family business. He wanted to see them. What happens? What are they having that others don't have? How does it work that they are still a family business after 100 years? So the qualities they found, I'm abbreviating it, it's a whole book, but we were shortening it here. So the qualities which are standing out is that they have shared values. So it's the value. They have a governance in the place. They have cross-generational engagement. So everyone knows everyone. Everyone talks to each other. It's they learn from each other. It's vertical and horizontal. Siblings know each other well. Children and parents have a conversation. There's a lot of togetherness. How Starbucks is using this word. There's a lot of togetherness in the family. Everyone knows each other. Everyone knows who is his strengths and his weaknesses. Long-term business resiliency. You have a nest egg. You have some money on the side. When things go bad, you know that you can fall back on it. And you redefine and look at your business. It's a business. It's a long-term resilient business. Has to have changes. Have to make changes, and it's difficult to make changes. But this is what you need: education of the rising generation. Not only thinking children one day all of this will be yours, but teach them from the beginning what it means to be a business owner. It's not only having a nice car and being chauffeured around. It's a lot of responsibility. Every employee in your business has a family behind him, which is depending on your decisions. And of course, also see your role in the society. Interesting enough that the concerns that those families have, if you ask them what keeps you up at night, they are worried about the future, like we all are. The world is currently geopolitically in a turmoil. There are a lot of things happening: climate change, etc., inflation. There's enough black swans out there to have us worry. So they worry about the future for their children. They are worrying if that the children will remain productive, even so they are spoiled with wealth and success of the family business. That they have a positive impact on community, that they're not being seen as only the rich people who are looking for locked up in their ivory tower, but that they're actually being seen as a valuable member of society. Reflection on themselves. Who are we and what can we become? What is important for us? What are our values? Again, then what to do with the wealth? I mean, okay, so as long as it's in the business, you just reinvest in the business. But if the business is not going well, or if the business is in something which you actually don't think has a future, how do you deal with your will? And gratitude. responsibility for wealth. You have to be not that the money defines you. You have to define what your money has to do for you. But as you see, interesting enough, most of them are non-financial, personal, and not business. So it doesn't help just to have good consultants how to run your family business. You also have to see how the personal things work for the family, how your family is coping, how your family members are coping with money. Here, in a more graphical way, which we like as bankers, you can see that G2, if you look at the verticals, G2 families, so families in the second generation, might have a family council 63% already. A family constitution, only 25% have. Next generation education, only 13% have. And an exit policy, no one has. So if you look at this and you see that in generation 3 to 4, already most things are in place. If the family survives to be a fifth generation, then everything is there. There's a family council, there's a family constitution, there's next generation education, there's an exit policy, there's an independent board, and there's a non-family CEO. So there's many things have to happen for a family to survive over generations. Not only about the money, it's not about the alpha, it's about having put things in place like a governance, like education for the generation, like preparation for the next generation, and also possibility for some family members to leave if they don't feel happy in the family business. Okay, what's the family office? We all know a family office, we define that as where the money is being managed. But here again, I'm coming back and say family office is the intersection of the quantitative and the qualitative. It is very important that the family office sees every family member, not only the ones which are in the business. And when is it time? The moment it becomes complex. I mean, if there's one person having a wealth, then it's a private banking client. But the moment it's a family, it's becoming complex automatically. So from then that moment on, it's important to have a family office. But the CFO and the CPA cannot run the family office. The family office has to be run by a multiple of people, which each one brings their skill to tackle all the issues the family has. So how do you run your family office? You first of all have to understand that it's not about the family business, it's about the family. So it has to be also the family part has to be managed, also the management part, the ownership part has to be managed, and also the business interaction with the business has to be done, but interaction and not managing it from the business should have its own management. And you as a family office are sitting in the middle in this triangle. That's where the family office should be working. Family offices are the go-to place for the family for all needs and all things they need. And they go to the family office and tell them what they need about if it's financial, if it's concierge, if it's whatever. The family office goes then to the external providers. Sometimes it's tax advice, so you go to a tax lawyer. Sometimes it's asset management, you go to an asset management. But sometimes it's to find a new toy, if it's a yacht or a plane. So you have to find someone who can help the family to buy the right plane and to have the right staff for the plane, etc. So everything the family office takes what the family needs and goes to the providers. Family office is a generalist. Family office is the place where everything is turning around. It's the pivot. It's the bottleneck. It's the center of the family, where everything is being dealt with, not just managing the money. It's everything which is needed. And then when they get the advice or the service from the provider, it goes back through the family office, back to the family until they have some new need. And this will be going to circle goes again, and it's indefinite. The family wealth is not only, you see the upper part, which is the yellow, it's wealth creation and stewardship. It's not only the financials, the estate planning, the social impact and philanthropy, the risk management. It's also the bottom part, the health and the well-being, the family dynamics, the learning and development of the rising generation, leadership and transition planning, governance and decision making. The cultivation of the family capital is as important as the wealth creation. Only if you have all this together, then you have a family advisor relationship, then you have actually a very good family office. This is key. And of course, and this is also very important, communication You don't have the trustee talk to the family, the CPA talk to the family, the advisors, the bankers, the lawyers. If they all talk to the family will be overwhelmed by all this information. Just what I had this morning with my client. You need to have the family office, which is preparing a report that the family can understand and that it is tailor-made to the family. It might be that the family office gets a very detailed report from the CPA, a very detailed analysis on the taxes and the implications thereof if they change this or that, and if the son is now going to America and does a postdoctorate in some university and gets a green card, that the whole ship is actually exposed to the IRS and stuff like that. All this stuff the family office is working out, and once the family office knows all the information and knows what is relevant for the family, then he turns around and goes to the family and says, here family, we have worked it out. That's what's relevant for your family. That's what's important for you to decide. And at the next family meeting, family board meeting, or family assembly, those things can be discussed. In the family board is only family members. So this is very important, that the family office is the center where the things are happening. And of course, there's many questions families have to ask. It's about values. It's about what we do with cash. What do we do with money? We have a liquidity event. Do we distribute? Do we don't distribute? Not every family member has the same needs. Some have a lot of children and God forbid have someone with special needs. Others have no children and want to live today. They want to be owners. They're not stewards. They say, I have no children. I want to get the maximum dividend out of the business. I want to spend the money. I want to enjoy it. I want to travel the world. Nothing wrong with it. It's his or her choice. But you as a family office have to know that. So you have to ask, and the family itself has to ask, who are we and what do we allow and not allow to happen? Family history, who is family, the financial health of the family, all those things. There's a lot of questions. We don't have to go to the psychologist and lie down on this famous couch of Sigmund Freud, but we have to understand that the biggest asset we have is the family. And it's Friday afternoon, so you're soon going home and you will have a weekend. The best place to be is to be with your family and to have conversations about the family table, not about money. Discussions about the business, the money should be done in the business meetings, in the business, in the offices. At home, it's just being family. Be a family. Doesn't matter how many shares you have, doesn't matter if you're in the business or not in the business, family is what your asset. That's the best thing. And that's where you communicate and that's where you are making your points, because we all want, if God forbid we have to leave this world eventually, we don't want to be remembered only about how many dollars and cents we left to the family or how many problems we left to the family. We want to be remembered that the person we were, the stories we told, the hobbies we had and stuff like that. So this is what happens in the family. There's no replacement for this. The best thing is to sit around the table and be family. So here we are. I run it through to have some time left for questions, and I'm most intrigued to hear what you want to know. And if there's any questions, I'm here available.
Thank you, Philip. It was very insightful of you. So we'll keep the chat box open and we'll welcome all the questions.
Yes, you see the caricature that Ash Bishnoi has on his Zoom. That's exactly that. Someday we will all die, Snoopy. True, but on all the other days we will not. So let's enjoy life and let's see the good sides of everything. But you need to, for that, you need to have a governance. You need to have clear rules of who does what in the family, and then you can actually enjoy life and not worry about death and not worry about disputes. I think that managing the money is very important. Managing it right is very important. Managing the business right is important, but you're not doing this alone. You can't do this alone. The whole family has to be aligned or involved or informed about what's going on in the business.
Okay, so we have a question here from Risha.
Yeah, I just saw it. So the question here is, what is per year see outside India, which you see different in India in family business? So what I see, human beings are human beings, so it's everywhere the same. But the thing is that here in India, or there in India. I'm not in India right now. In India, you are, by the way, similar to here in Israel. Your country is 75 years old. You started in a socialist background like Israel also. So I would say that the business world in India, you're in the second generation and some of it in third generation, but you're not. America families and Europe families are in the 10th or 20th generation. I have seen families which have like 1,500 family members, which are all shareholders. The business usually already publicly traded, but they are still gathering as a family and still consider themselves owning a huge business. So the similarity of Israel and in India is that you are in the second and third generation. So you are just now starting to have those issues. Family offices in America, by the way, about 70% of them don't manage money. 70% of them manage family issues and outsource the management of the money to big, good management companies. If it's BlackRock or Morgan Stanley or Charles Schwab, whatever you want to know, Fidelity, that can be with everyone. They will perhaps overlook how the management is done by those companies. They will perhaps do asset allocation or investment committees, but they are not actually managing money. They are managing the issues around the money. They're managing wealth and not assets. And that's what I think is my message all over the world I'm talking. Yes, of course, we need a banker in the family office. And of course, we need financial people and we need to understand the cash flow and the money and all that. This is important, but it's not the only thing. We also have to get the family in there. You also have to get governance about how to approach it. So I think in India, I just came back months ago from India. I was in the south this time. I was in Chennai and in Coimbatore, and I meet so many businesses out there which are just at the beginning. It's now siblings or cousins which are struggling of how to live with each other and work with each other, because as usual you also live in the same house, some of you. So it is very complex, and it's very. I think there's also another thing, and again, I don't want to offend anyone else, but I think that in India, what is also happening in India, from my outside view, is that you have this transition also of tradition. You're the first generation to have studied abroad. You're the first generation to have worked abroad. You're the first generation who comes with Western values and comes into the family business where the patriarchal system and the legacy and the tradition is very, very important still. And that will create clashes, because you come with your Harvard MBA or with your Cambridge PhD and come back to the family business, and then your father tells you, okay, now sit there and look how I manage the business, and you want to get new input, you want to bring ideas, you want to bring modern management technology. Like my father, when he came back from Harvard and looked at the business from a different point of view, for him, his father just died before that, so he was the leader and could do the changes. But most of his peers, most of our family friends, which are also in the same industry, did not close their business and continued and then struggled and then found new ways of doing it. And some of them also had to say goodbye to the business and to their wealth because they did not adapt and change. Now, there's another question. First generation owners are typically strong-minded. The concept of creating a governance structure that has other voices is quite alien to them. Correct. How do you overcome this attitude when setting up a family office for them? So unfortunately, I can't sugarcoat it. It's something you have to push. You have to tell them, but if you don't change, your grandchildren will not inherit anything. And how do you want to be remembered? You want to be remembered of being this amazing, successful businessman and then also having destroyed your business? You have to confront, but you can't confront in a way, again, tradition. You can't throw the table around and rock the boat. But you have to always say, but Dad, in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, we wish you a long life, but in 30 years, the world has changed. And I think, for example, COVID was a very interesting accelerator for those things, because the older generation had to stay home and was afraid of getting out because of getting affected by Corona. And the younger generation was more agile and could do more things. Also, the younger generation knows technology better, digitalization. And suddenly, if you wanted to sell your business, you sell your goods, you had to sell them over the internet because you can't go to the shop. So those were moments where you could have sit down with your dad and say, listen, the world changes. We need now an internet platform. We need to do that this way. We need to do it that way. And a little anecdotal story, which I wrote for myself, because I like to do association. Imagine that the old patriarch of the family business decides to buy a new machine, a huge machine which can do all the work. So you produce 1,000 pieces a day. Now, if you have the machine, it will produce 10,000 pieces a day. So this is a big decision to order this machine. It comes from abroad. It's being shipped on a big ship in a container. From the container, it's being loaded on a truck. The truck brings it to your factory. It's loaded down from the truck. It's being put into the factory ground. The big day arrives when the machine is being hooked up to electricity, water, and whatever it needs. The moment comes where the patriarch of the business turns the switch up and the machine starts working. From that day on, every morning he goes to the factory and sees how the machine is producing 10,000 pieces. And wow, and this machine changes the business, brings the business forward, makes more sales, brings new clients. It's the game changer. This machine costs $250,000. Now think that you are sending your child to America to study MBA at MIT, Harvard, Columbia, the most expensive universities. How much does it cost until he comes back with his postdoctorate or his MBA? About $250,000. But what do you do with it? You set him in the little office next to you and say, son, look how I run the business. And you're not actually using that resources you just invested in, this MBA knowledge that the young man or young lady brings back from the university. So I think this is an example of saying, machine, you're willing to buy a machine and have a better production of your goods, but to put your son in place or your daughter in place that they actually bring what they learned outside is very, very difficult. And I think that this is an importance to get to the parents and say, listen, the world is changing constantly and we have to adapt, we have to change. Let us, the young generation, be an opportunity. Look at Bill Gates. At a young age he started the business. Look at the guys who founded Google. People can do it at a young age. So don't rock the boat, don't risk the whole business, but give the children a chance. What is the commercial we charge as a family office advisor, a standard practice globally? Is it project-based or based? Okay, me? Okay. Look, a family office which manages assets is the easiest because it's basis points of assets under management. If you manage money, you just say, okay, give me 50 basis points or 25 basis points, or if you're very good, you can even charge a bit more. Basis points of assets under management. That was the easy way. I did that for many years. And then when I started with consulting families, I can't take the value. The value is not relevant. So here I charge by project or by hour. So if I'm beginning, is always by hour because I have no idea. A client comes to me and has an idea what he needs, and then I actually see what he comes what he wants, but then I understand what he needs, and then I'll turn around and say, listen, I think you should do this and that and that. So if it's like setting up a governance, which is just a process which takes a year or two, so we do it per diem. I come for a day and sit down with the family, so I charge the day. It's very difficult to know, and that's why many people who in my industry don't want to do what I do because it's much less profitable or much secure than you have assets under management. It's a bit problematic, but it's a consulting fee. That's what it is at the end. So thank you to all of you saying thank you here. I hope I was helpful. If there's more questions, I'm still here. It's Friday afternoon, 2:30. I'm already ready for the weekend. Yes.
Thank you, Philip. I am pretty sure that it was great to have you on board. I guess there are no more questions in the chat box also. So we'll end it here. Thank you everybody for joining in. Thank you, Philip.
You're
Have
welcome.
a great day and have a great weekend.
Goodbye, everyone, for you. Have a nice weekend. Thank you very much. Hope to see you eventually in Mumbai or in everywhere else in India. Thank you very much.